Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is explain. And all this week, I'm going to be discussing verbs that are connected to us going back to school. So let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we can use this particular verb. The first way you might hear explain used is to mean to make an idea, a problem, or something else clear to another person. And you're making it clearer by either describing it in great detail or maybe providing some additional facts and information. This is a common verb that's used in school. Many times, teachers will ask their students to explain different ideas or concepts to see if they understand it. In math, they might ask them to explain the steps they took to arrive at a particular answer. In literature, many times teachers ask for students to explain why a character said or certain words or behaved in a particular way. So all of this is connected to making something clearer to another person. Explain is a verb that teachers do frequently as well. They might need to explain a new concept, right? That would tie back to idea. They might need to explain directions or instructions for a particular task as well. A second way you might hear explain used is to mean to be the cause of something. And I feel like this meaning is best illustrated with an example. So let's pretend we have a coworker who's normally very friendly, always says hello, asks how you're doing, and one day you see them at work and they're not very friendly. You kind of think, oh, that's different. And then later someone shares, oh, this person had a loved one passed away. You might go, oh, well, that explains why the person wasn't their normal friendly self, right? They're quite sad. They're grieving. That's what this means, right? So it could be an idea, could be a fact that helps us understand the cause of another thing or some sort of action. A third way to use the verb explain is to mean to account for something by giving a reason or an excuse. This particular usage might come up with parents and children quite often. Parents might ask their children to explain why they did something. And that something usually isn't very good, but they're trying to get them to think about maybe a not so good decision that they made or a poor choice. You should know that explain is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all you need to do is add ing to form explaining. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. The base verb explain ends with a voiced n sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a d sound. We're not going to add an extra syllable here. It should sound like this: explained, explained. I just have one phrasal verb for us to look at today, and that is to explain away something. Typically, with this particular phrasal verb, we're talking about someone trying to make some type of excuse in order to dismiss or minimize the importance of something. So we might think of this phrasal verb as occurring after something bad happens. Let's take a look at our example sentence. He couldn't explain away his poor performance on the test to his parents. Okay, so perhaps this particular student tried to say, well, the teacher didn't tell us what was on the test, so I didn't know what to study. This test isn't worth many points. It's not a big deal, right? So the student is providing all of these excuses, but the parents aren't dismissing this, right? They still see it as a very important thing. And the reason I can say that is because we've got our negative here, could not explain. So the student was not able to dismiss or minimize a bad test grade. Now, let's continue using our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today, we're going to talk about the simple past and the simple future using will. Let's start with the simple past tense. We're using this verb tense to talk about an action that was completed at some known or definite point in the past. You might see time signals, words like yesterday, last week, in 2015, etc. Okay? Those can help us know the definite time, but not all simple past tense sentences are going to have time signals. Sometimes they are implied as part of a conversation or as part of a longer written passage. In the affirmative, if we want to make a simple past tense sentence, all we need to do is use that ed form of the verb. This is true no matter what our subject is. Let's take a look at an example. The student explained her ideas in several paragraphs. Okay, so that's going to tie back really nicely to our first definition. Made something clearer by describing it or providing additional facts and information. If I want to make a negative sentence in the simple past tense, I'm going to use did not and then the base verb. So notice I'm not using the ed form in the negative. Another example, his email did not explain his absence, right? So here we're looking for a reason or a cause. What made that person not be present, not show up? Finally, if you want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, start with did, then have your subject, and then the base verb. An example of this, did the teacher explain his class rules on the first day of school? Now, let's take a look at the simple future. Today, we're going to focus on using will. It's very common for us to do this if we're making an offer, a promise, or a prediction. And the nice thing about this structure is that it will be the same no matter what our subject is. So our structure in the affirmative is to use will and then the base verb. An example might be, the school handbook will explain all policies. Okay? Perhaps we have somebody asking questions, what about this? How do students do that? And someone kind of makes the promise here. Read the handbook. It will explain all of our rules and policies. If you want to make a negative simple future sentence, you can use not between will and the base verb. You might hear some people use the contraction won't. You can see that in the example sentence. The singer won't explain her song lyrics anymore. I saw this as I was reading recently, and someone was suggesting I'm not going to talk about why I wrote a particular song or what my inspiration was. I'm done, right? So going forward into the future, I will not do this particular action. Finally, if you want to make a yes or no question in the simple future, start with will, then have your subject, and then the base verb. You can see that in the question. Will additional information explain her behavior? So again, that's that idea of like help us understand the cause or the reason behind something. Now, let's spend a little time looking at words that are related to our verb explain. The first word we're going to look at is the noun explanation. This can have a couple different meanings. One is just a statement that makes something clear. An example of that could be this article provides an explanation of what cryptocurrency is, right? So this topic or subject of cryptocurrency is confusing for a lot of people, but someone might be saying, here, read this. It makes it clear. It makes it makes us able to understand it better. A second way to use the noun explanation is to refer to a reason that is given for some action or maybe a reason given for a particular belief. An example of that meaning might be, what's the explanation for their early retirement? So, pretty common in the United States that people retire around the age of 65. They might be a little bit older or a little bit younger, but if we heard news that maybe someone's 45 and they're retiring, you might want to know what's the reason for that because it seems a little more uncommon. The next word we'll look at is the adjective explainable. This means able to be understood. An example of that could be global warming is explainable and solvable. So we are able to understand what's causing global warming, and there are things we can do to stop it. The last word I'm going to leave you with today is a pretty new word in English. It's the noun mansplaining. And this word is really a combination of two words. It's man plus explain. And what this is referring to is an explanation. And generally, this explanation is coming from a man and it's to a woman. And this explanation, in many ways, is sort of talking down to the woman. So, sharing information maybe the woman already knows. Sometimes we'll use the word condescending to describe this. Let's look at an example that we might help make the meaning a little bit clearer. Many female lawyers have shared mansplaining stories where men who aren't lawyers explain legal concepts to them. Okay, so hopefully this situation can help you see kind of how crazy it is, right? So we have a woman, she's been to law school, she's passed the bar, she knows a lot of information. But then a man who hasn't done these things tries to share information, make things clearer to her who has the expertise. That is commonly what is referred to as mansplaining. And I can share with you that has happened to me many times throughout my life, and it probably will continue. And I think many women who might be watching this video can identify with that happening as well. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.